It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn. I'm excited to be with you today, as I always am, and I'm sitting here in the Center for Innovation at the Fayetteville Public Library. I always want to give a shout out to them, especially when I use this fabulous facility. But today, I'm excited to bring to you a guest that I reached out to really quickly. And just for those of you that don't know my process when it comes to bringing people on the podcast, I created this podcast, as most of you know, just because I like talking to interesting people. And when I found out about this gentleman and his desire to move from Central Arkansas to Northwest Arkansas with his food truck to lay a flag in the ground here and take his food truck to a whole nother level, I said I had to have him on the podcast. And so if you haven't figured out who it is, because you probably don't know, his name is Hayne Begley. And Hayne is the founder of Delta Biscuit Company. It's a food truck. And I suspect he's working on a number of things right now. But without further ado, I want to welcome Hayne Begley to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate you reaching out. And I'm glad that we could make it work.
No, I am too. You know, I told my wife, I said, man, I reached out to him and he got back to me so fast. I was like, oh, okay, so this guy's serious. He's up here trying to make some things happen. And
yeah, I don't play around. I try to win it. And it's one of those things, if I don't get to it, I don't get to it. There's 1,000 things happening. So it's like, okay, respond, make it happen. Let's see if we can do it and go forward. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that. So thank you so much for doing that. And I know my audience is going to appreciate this, and your stomachs will thank me later. But Hayne, why don't we always like to start the podcast off by asking people to give us their superhero origin story, right? Because I think when I listen to any podcast, I always want to know, who am I listening to? Why should I be listening to them in the first place? So I would love for you just to kind of give us the Cliff Note version of your superhero origin story before coming up here to Northwest Arkansas. And then that'll be part 2 of this conversation that we're going to have today.
Yeah. So I grew up in a little town in kind of north central Arkansas called Bald Knob.
Okay.
If you guys know where Searcy is, right out, where Harding University is, we're just north of that.
Okay.
Town of about 3,000 people. And it was fantastic, right? Like running through the woods and the creek in the backyard and hanging out and just super safe and very cool. That's still that age where, and I think that time in American history where it was like, get outside. Right. You are not allowed. Sunday or Saturday morning, you clean your room, you get to watch cartoons, dad makes breakfast during the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show, and then your butt's outside. You're not inside for the rest of the day. And if you come inside, you better be hurt or need something.
Right.
It was one of those things. I graduated high school there and went to Ouachita Baptist University.
Okay.
So did a couple years there, left for a few years and traveled, lived in Texas, spent a little bit of time in the Pacific Northwest, and then went back to OBU in 2003 and finished up in 2006. And at the time my degree's in theology and Hebrew.
Wow.
And so I had a very different career path and came out of that and realized that so much of what I loved about that was figuring things out and just the contemplation with that. But I also loved creating. Even while I was doing that, my ideas all centered around, how can I bring value? How can I bring value to the church community? How can I bring value to my fellow theologians? How can we train? How can we kind of pass what we love, which was theology and belief, onto people who want that, the church? And so I was looking at nothing ever centered really around like being a pastor or anything. It was always either being a teacher or owning a business where I would actually teach in the churches. And then got into restaurants. I had been in coffee for several years in college at a coffee shop down there called Three O's, which is now closed, sadly, but people who were there in the early mid-2000s will remember that, in Arkadelphia, and fell in love with coffee, as deep into it as you could get at the time, and then ended up getting married, moving to Omaha, Nebraska, lived there for a couple years, moved back to Little Rock in 2009, and in that time, I worked in restaurants the whole time and really found a passion for creation, concept creation, bringing very, very cool things and places to communities. I don't think many of us would say that, like, and let's just use McDonald's, is cool, right? When you walk in, it's McDonald's.
Yeah.
But we all have those local restaurants in our neighborhoods that are cool. And I love that feeling. I love that community. And so knew that I wanted to do that. Started kind of down that path and staying in restaurants on Little Rock. Ended up at Union Pacific Railroad for about 6 years and left there in 2017 to open my own place. Yeah, so that's kind of the superhero origin in a nutshell.
The genesis of it all, right?
And of course, while I was at the railroad, there's some other podcasts and some articles, but kind of just came up with the idea for Little Rock needed brunch at the time. There wasn't really any breakfast brunch in Little Rock. There's some great brunch now. There's still not a lot of like weekday breakfast, but wanted to bring that to Little Rock and was like, how do we do this? And very quickly settled on a biscuit because we're the South. We love biscuits. Yeah. And then from there, it was just a matter of like, okay, let's bring this to life. And then fall of 2018, we opened the food truck in Little Rock and made it through COVID. And we were there until March of 2022.
Yeah. So, you almost had about 2 years of a run before COVID happened. Just kind of get your sea legs. I think
we opened November of 18 and COVID was March 15th of 2020. So I think officially it was like 17 months.
Okay.
And then, the whole world collapsed.
Yeah.
So, and we were on a rocket trajectory and it just took all the propulsion and
all the wind out of your sail.
Yeah. It was a dead stop for everyone.
Everyone. Wow. What did you find? I know a lot of people, people have made, like in their careers, they've made the pandemic pivot and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. What for you happened during the pandemic that kind of thrust you into this space that you're in right now?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, a couple things in it. And I think some of this really comes back to kind of my core philosophies on business. But initially, a friend of ours who had a food truck in Little Rock called Excalibur. He and I were actually at OBU together. His name's Kyle Pounders.
Excalibur.
It was great. But he had started doing a lot of work with Chef Jose Andres in the World Central Kitchen. And so he had done work out in California. He had done work all over. And so he was already connected to that. And we were one of the first places during the pandemic that the World Central Kitchen kind of came into and started pushing meals out. The Clinton Library there basically turned over their kitchen into a prep kitchen. And within 2 weeks of the pandemic, we were helping put meals out at lunch and dinner 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Sure.
To all the communities around Little Rock that were just really hurting. And so that was such a wonderful thing for us to just jump into. We were very lucky that they saw it as not only a way to provide food, but also the food trucks, they were able to provide us a little bit of a stipend. So I didn't have to lay anyone off. We were able to keep going. Luckily, a lot of our bills and stuff just kind of go away when you're not making food.
Sure.
But we did have some, behind the scenes bills. So we were able to really just kind of, the goal at that point I realized was stay afloat.
Yeah.
We just want to stay afloat. And where so many of our local restaurants who have way more overhead and way more staff than I did, kind of turned to the to-goes and doing that. I chose not to because I didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And very early on, we didn't know how long it was going to last. And I remember having conversations with people and friends who were doctors and all sorts of stuff. And we were talking 10% death rate is what we thought we were going to run into. Thank God we didn't.
Yeah.
Sub 1%. Okay. Horrible, but not the 10% that we were expecting. And so I just said, hey, let's let the restaurants, the local places have all that to go. We're not going to try to push that. We tried to promote them. Because between what the government did for small business and what World Central Kitchen did, my one staff guy was paid. I was fine. We didn't lose anything except business, but we stayed afloat. And so just really saw the community pull together through that. And then coming out of that, the pivot was the whole food market that I had lived in from 2009 in Little Rock to 2020, 10, 11 years. It's so different now. It's a whole different world because whereas food trucks used to go to, say, big businesses,
sure,
they're all still working from home. So my Monday through Friday business is gone. Nobody's catering. Your weddings aren't back. Nothing's happening. That's what food trucks build their bread and butter on. And so Little Rock's a very different market than Northwest Arkansas. Food trucks don't stay put in Little Rock. We have to move every day. We just don't have those spots. And so people couldn't just come get our food. And so we just had to rethink and relearn and kind of go back almost like starting up again.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting time.
So they don't have I'm thinking of like the yacht club right down the street here. And then they just opened up a brand new food truck parking lot out in Springdale. There's one up.
So there are a couple.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the culture there. People don't go to those.
Yeah.
But also it's a very different city. The area. We don't have the college kids. We don't have as many people that kind of work from home, have their own businesses, have that kind of flexibility. And so much of Little Rock is your commuter, right? Like people driving into the city to work and driving home. And so lunch is convenience and lunch is, or they bring it, right? And so it just never really, the food truck parks that are there, they do fine at night, but I don't know about you. I still don't want a biscuit and a beer at 8 p.m., 6 p.m. It's not my thing. I get it.
Not.
Totally get it. I'll drink a good Hefeweizen and have brunch on Saturday.
Yeah.
Even Thursday, Tuesday, that's fine. But on a Friday night, you don't want biscuit and a beer. I want a burger. I want some tots. I want fried chicken. I want some tacos.
Yeah,
I get it. It's not my market.
It isn't.
So those do really well at night. We never really could do that. I never really saw that grow during the day.
Yeah.
Just because people don't associate food trucks with quick.
Yep.
Even though I can tell you, if you park and walk up to our window and order within 6 minutes, your food's out, which is still faster than most drive-thrus, and you're getting something homemade and fantastic. And so, but also in Little Rock, everything's it's such an old city that everything's kind of bought. And so there's no real place to just put a food truck park where the businesses are. And so we just haven't seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think obviously I think here there has been some thoughtful development into how we're going to set things up outside of the one-off food trucks that might be located in one area, but you've got Bentonville's got their area, and Rogers now has one, and Springdale has a couple.
Centerton has one. Gravette has one.
Gravette has
P Ridge is building one.
Yeah.
They're going up everywhere.
Right. They are.
Yeah.
So, so that's exciting. So tell us a little bit about Delta Biscuits.
Yeah. Well, so Delta Biscuit is a biscuit-centered food concept.
Right.
And Delta Biscuit was built and designed to be, so my consulting and design company is called Global Street, and Delta Biscuit was really designed to be kind of a flagship to say, hey, look, we can build something from the ground up. We can design a concept, we can push it out there, we can get brand recognition, and we can do something that's fantastic. Because what I want to do is continue to do that, build brands, build concepts. And when I say that, I know people think like Subway, McDonald's, big things.
Right.
I have no desire to do that.
Sure.
I think that food is best when it's small and regional.
Yeah.
It lets you be nimble. I don't want you to come to Arkansas and get the same thing that you can get in Ohio.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You can't get Arkansas black apples in Ohio. You can get those here. You can get them in Tennessee, North Carolina. There's a line. They don't grow that high. Okay, well, come here and get that.
Yeah.
Come here and get Delta Biscuit. So if we end up with 6, 7 restaurants in Arkansas, I don't need more than that. I don't think that it's long-term sustainable. And I mean, it obviously is, but also then when you have a pandemic or something happens, you have supply chain issues, and let's just keep it a little local. The restaurants I enjoy most are local. And so that's what it was always built around. And even like, hey, you may not be able to get the same things in Bentonville that maybe one day you can get in Fayetteville because Fayetteville wants a different biscuit. Okay,
right.
Well, you can't get it in Bentonville. Well, why not? Well, because you get it in Fayetteville. Sorry. I don't mind telling people that. So Delta Biscuit was started as really giving the market in Little Rock what they didn't have, which was breakfast. And sadly, we never really could find a spot to open up for breakfast every day. We were kind of in the brunch, lunch, private event, and then weekends. But we do a 4.5-inch homemade buttermilk biscuit. I've made close to 400,000 of them at this point.
Wow.
So we make them all in-house. And our goal is to do everything as absolutely fresh and in-house as possible. So when you order, we bread the chicken. We brine the chicken when we get it. It's ready to go. We bread it on the truck and fry it for you right there. It takes 5 minutes. You're not going to get something that is bought, breaded in a box, and I drop in the fryer. We're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
The closest things to that are we buy local made jelly, and the potatoes we buy are a roasted potato blend, because it's cheaper than us doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And what we would do is cut them and roast them. So it's exactly the same product. I'm just having someone else do it. And it's sweet potatoes, pearl potatoes, and gold potatoes, which are hard to find all year, but they do it. And so everything else, is we're doing on truck. And the goal behind Delta Biscuit is to just bring the absolute best biscuit/breakfast that we can and really just leave people happy and kind of surprised and amazed when they come to the truck.
Yeah.
So,
And, and It's funny because biscuits are actually quite filling. They, if they're made right, they don't feel like a rock on the bottom of your stomach. I mean, they kind of melt in your mouth, right? You throw some butter on there or your other favorite topping. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about it. It truly is, the highest level of good breakfast food that you can have. And then you can add so many things to it, which is really nice. So I'd love for you just to kind of whet our audience's appetite with just a visual of some of the different types of biscuits that you put together. Sure. We were talking about one before we started recording, but
we were talking about the Dr. Jones.
Yeah, so tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing about Delta Biscuit that we don't do that a lot of other biscuit restaurants around the country do is I don't really add anything in. The closest thing we get to that is we do an everything biscuit, but that's all on the outside. We do that for our salmon lox biscuit, which will make an appearance sometime in May, June.
Ooh,
so you guys stay tuned for that. Yeah, it's phenomenal. But I want the biscuit to stand alone. And so we focus on adding things into it, in between it, because we just treat it like a big hamburger bun,
right?
A big biscuit hamburger bun, I guess. But the one we were talking about, the Dr. Jones. So we start with our 5-ounce chicken breast. Like I said, we brine it. We do a quasi pickle brine. So I don't use pickle juice, but I basically make brine like I would brine pickles in, and then we go that way. So it's played with it a little bit, but I think it adds exactly what I want to it. And as we all know, if you don't add something to chicken breast, it's pretty bland.
Yeah,
that's kind of it's an open canvas.
Yeah.
So we do a 5-ounce chicken breast. We do our homemade pimento cheese on top of that, and underneath that is our homemade bacon jam. And more than anything, I get asked, what's bacon jam? It is bacon, caramelized onions, and brown sugar. That's pretty much what it is. And you just let it cook until it's jammy. And so that goes underneath. So you get the sweet, you get the salt from the bacon, you get the kind of acid from the fried chicken, you get that nice crunch, and then the pimento cheese is creamy. And pimento cheese is one of those things I think kind of divides a lot of people. I grew up on the whipped orange out of the jar from the store and hated it for years. And then a chef buddy of mine goes, dude, try this. This is real pimento. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic.
Right.
So I tell people, if you like cheddar cheese, you'll like our pimento.
Yeah.
Because that's the primary ingredient. We do have a few things in there. We add a little bit of spice. It's got a little kick to it, but it goes on top and starts to melt down. And so you're getting a little heat, that creaminess from the cheese, and it all just comes together in a fantastic, fantastic dish. The other number one, so that's been a number one. So the other one is I love Eggs Benedict.
Yep.
It's very hard to find a good Eggs Benedict.
Yeah, it is.
And I realized real quick, I'm not going to make hollandaise on the truck. I'm just not. We make homemade sausage gravy. I learned how to make it from my grandfather at deer camp, and I took it and kind of expanded it into something we could reproduce. And of course, at deer camp, he didn't have, the 14 to 18 ingredients that we do to put in it. And so we take time, takes about 90 minutes to make our gravy. And then that's what we highlight as our hollandaise. So we split that biscuit open face. We put 4 ounces of smoked ham on there, 2 fried eggs, sunny side up, and then cover that in gravy. And so poached eggs are one of my favorite things. They're something we don't do on a food truck. It's just too much of a pain to have that extra pot. We just don't have room for it. But we do the sunny side up eggs and then cover that in gravy. And it is a Southern Benedict through and through. And it is fantastic. And then, we do a sausage, egg, and cheese with local jelly. We do currently 2 other chicken biscuits, one with sweet potato butter and greens. And then the other one right now is the Thug Nasty, which was called the Big Nasty after a catering client of ours. And we renamed it to the Thug Nasty after the UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell.
Okay.
In his last UFC fight, if you haven't paid attention, he is a very, very good UFC fighter, but he pledged half of his winnings to Arkansas Children's Hospital. And we thought that was Arkansas. He's a local Central Arkansas guy out of Sherwood. And we said, we're going to rename, his nickname is Thug Nasty. So we renamed it the Thug Nasty, and $1 off of every one of those goes to Arkansas Children's.
Oh, nice.
Right now. Okay. So if he changes his charity, we'll go to somewhere else. But that's what we did there. So you'll notice it's got a little bit of a price tag on it, but that's because it's got fried chicken, bacon, egg, gravy. It is
the whole nine.
Yeah. And if you said you saw the Hangry Peddler did a
Yes, I saw that. That's a
post on
huge,
it, and he said it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So he loved it.
Yeah.
But it is quickly becoming the bestseller. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Listen, I took the wrong time to be fasting. The day that we're recording this, I'm on a couple of days fast.
Nice.
So this is really tough. But
fasting. I fast on Mondays as well. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm on like a 3-day fast,
Nice.
and it certainly is to overcome what I consumed yesterday for Easter. So
Sure.
there is that. But nonetheless, my dietary issues are not the reason that we wanted to talk with you. So this all sounds amazing. And you recently, as of the time that we're recording this, just launched up here. And I think if I remember correctly, you had planned to be open from like 7 to 1, but you had to close a couple of hours earlier because you had totally sold out of biscuits.
Yeah, our first day we sold out. We took our last order, I think, at 10:55 that morning. So we opened at 7, took the last order at 10:55. And, I don't know the market yet.
Yeah.
And normally our Saturdays are 9 to 1 where we were, because it's just the way it was. We said, we're going to do a 7 to 1. Maybe it'll spread out a little bit more. It did not spread out. People showed up and we did about 150 items in 4 hours. And we just slung some food and had a good time and met a bunch of new friends, and hopefully everybody really enjoyed it. They seemed to.
Yeah.
So, and then of course our first weekday opening was Wednesday during the monsoon. And we just, watched people paddle their canoes through the parking lot, it felt like. But we still had people come out. They would call when the rain would die down. They would call in and run out and get food real quick. So it was great. Appreciate all the support.
So you were kind of surprised at the overwhelming just outpouring of people coming to support you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's been huge. And we've done a couple pop-ups up here. We've been buying our coffee from Airship since we opened. Yeah. We've done a couple Hogs games, and it was just so nice to, and appreciative for people to come out and give us a try when there's so many other options up here.
Sure.
And I know we feel like, our food can stand against anyone's. It may not be what you want that day, but you're not going to not come because you didn't enjoy it. And so I think that's about all any restaurant can do.
So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but your primary employee also moved up here, relocated up.
Is that was case? part of the, I guess I would say, like the impetus to actually make the jump is my right hand, Bob, right? He's been with me for, it's 3 years now. Yeah, since summer of 19.
Okay.
He also was my roommate in Little Rock. I had a house down there, and so he was one of my roommates there. And I just said, hey, man, I'm kind of looking at this. What do you think? You want to go? And he said, yeah, let's go. I said, all right. So it just made that jump so much easier because, number one, I don't have to train someone new.
Right.
He's run the truck without me there. He knows everything that I know.
Sure.
And is perfectly capable of handling it. And so being able to come up with someone, offload some of the responsibilities onto him as far as moving and just knowing, hey, you take care of this stuff with the truck. I'm going to handle some of the personal stuff that we got to do in the back end that he can't do because his name's not on the ownership thing.
Yeah.
And then he's been just a lifesaver there. So
that's awesome.
He's actually getting the order right now and taking care of all the truck stuff today. So well, I kind of run around and do meetings and schedule things.
All that good stuff. So now the truck is open. Currently, it's located where?
Currently, we're at 900 South Main in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Okay.
So if you know where Crepes Paulette is and you walk out of their front door, there's a parking lot on the other side of the Bentonville Special Services building, right behind Spud Doctors, right next to the Thaden School. So we've got a little spot there in a parking lot that was previously rented to another food truck. We're there now, and we're open Wednesdays through Saturdays, 7 to 1, at least through the end of April. And then we'll kind of reevaluate, kind of look at what hours and kind of traffic flow. And then part of that is getting another person hired to help with some prep. And then hopefully we'll be able to move that to Tuesday through Saturday is kind of the long-term goal there. And then if Sundays and Mondays make sense, we'll do that. We'll just have to hire. So, and as everyone knows right now, if you work in a business, they're hiring. And if you own a business, you're trying to hire. And it's just, it's hard. So
it is really hard. But I mean, I think now is the time if you're trying to build something to, kind of go whole hog. No pun intended, if you're going to do it, might as well do it. So,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think right now the thing is finding the right people is always to me more important than finding just a body.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to replace the body. But if I find the right person, I'm willing to pay them what they're worth. So let's get the right person in here and let's do that. And that kind of comes back to my underarching philosophy. And I think goes back to your question about kind of what during COVID did I see brought me kind of to this point. But long term, and I've said this, really for the last 6 months, kind of put it out there. I really want any company I do to eventually be employee owned. I think if you work for me, even though I had the idea and even though I kind of took some risks, but if you help get us to get this company to the next level, I couldn't have done it without those people. So why would I not bring them in and give them some ownership value? I know for me, it would make me feel valued. I know it's a nice financial incentive. If the business does well, you do well. And so if everyone there has buy-in, well, then you don't have the loss. You don't have all the things that plague restaurants. But the other end of it is I'm doing this because I love it. I don't care about the money. It doesn't matter to me. We all want to make a living. I want to be able to go ride bikes. I want to be able to go have a beer. Outside of that, I want to work with awesome people. I want to create cool things, and I want to give people a chance to come work for us and own something and build it with us.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I am now, is bring in the right people because they may be around for a long time, and bring them in hoping that they'll stay.
Yeah. It's so funny. You sound, I don't know if you've ever watched this show. I'm a big fan of Marcus Lemonis and The Prophet. And, he talks about people, process, and profits.
Yep.
Right. In that order.
Absolutely.
People first.
Yes.
And I noticed that all of the successful ventures that he took part of, he always tried to give some skin in the game to the employees, because he just said people tend to move that much further when they have a little skin in the game, they have some ownership, and they are actually building something. And I do believe, obviously that's intrinsically part of the American dream, right? Is to have a stake in something, but
Absolutely.
It's important.
Well, and that used to be given to employees through pensions, right?
Right.
Like that was kind of your stake. That has really gone by the wayside unless you work for a specific company. That got offloaded into 401ks where you were kind of in it for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that, but why not? Why shouldn't you be able to retire and then have an option to either sell, your percent back to the other employees, or hang on to that, and continue to draw out of that, and of course, there's a lot of legalities in that and how you do it, but anything can be done. And we've seen it with some of the bigger companies in the country. I think most notably New Belgium Brewing. That's how they became what they were. It was employee owned. And it's one of those things where you go, okay, everybody bought in because they had a stake, whether they were doing tours or brewing beer or in HR. It didn't matter, because if there was litter on the ground, well, that's your ground.
Yep.
If there's a broken door, that's your door. If there was something that needed to be fixed, that's yours too. And so it gives you that connection.
Yeah.
And it gives you that, not entitlement, but just, ownership. You know? We take care of things that we own better than we take care of things that we don't own.
Sure. So, okay. So what I want to ask you then, since you are a native Arkansan, was there any one thing that really surprised you about Northwest Arkansas since you've been here? It's been a short period of time. It's not like you haven't been here before, but you're here now. You're working up here. You've got a food truck up here. Was there anything that you were kind of pleasantly surprised by once you got here and you were like, wow, I had no idea?
So I think that the biggest thing in that vein for me has been just the feeling of camaraderie. There's not a feeling of, oh, there's someone else moving in. There's someone else opening up. Right. Oh, there's someone else. It's been everyone from Mark, one of the owners of Spud Doctors, who I reached out to, and he was every step of the way. How do I help? How do I help? What can I tell you? What do you want to know? Who do you need to contact with? And the reason we're where we are, which literally I can throw a baseball and hit his food truck, is because he said, well, hey, go check. I rent from these people in this building. Go check. They may have a spot open.
Sure.
And I walked in and they said, oh, yeah, we have a spot right behind him. Would you like it? I was like, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Mark, you don't mind me? He goes, dude, more food trucks here, the better.
Yeah.
And I love that community. The social media, the food bloggers, just so excited to share. Everyone coming out. There's no sense of the pie isn't big enough.
Right.
It's, hey, if the pie's better, there's more for all of us.
Exactly.
And I think that's such a helpful thing. Everybody's been helpful. Everybody wants awesome stuff. And I think that comes with a growth mindset.
Yeah.
That seems to be very prevalent here. People are going, everybody's full. Everybody's busy. All your restaurants are, they're busy as much as they want to be. Nobody's like, well, I wish we could get more business on Saturday night. They're like, man, maybe we should open another day.
Yeah.
It's a different world. And so when you bring something cool, which I think we have, you bring something different, it's not, we're not doing burgers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with burgers. Those may happen at some point in another fashion, but we're not just another of the same.
Yeah.
And I think people respond to that, and everybody's just been so open and welcoming. And, I didn't know what to expect, but I definitely didn't expect it at the level that it is. It's, true Southern hospitality.
Sure. No, I loved it. And I had a chance to watch. I didn't catch it live, but you did a live video on Instagram.
I did.
And I guess I caught it a little later, but I watched it and made a couple of comments, and I thought it was really well done. And it was just kind of you kind of having just a normal conversation about kind of thinking through what you've experienced so far and what you hope to do, which I think is really nice. I actually think that I hope more food truck owners get comfortable behind the camera like that and are willing to just kind of bear all and share, because I'm a foodie. I'm not running around. I don't have a food blog, but I love food. And I tell everybody and their mother about the best places to eat here in Northwest Arkansas. And I try to feature some of those individuals on the podcast. But I think it's important for an individual that does have a food truck to let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're thinking about. I mean, you even talked about you're getting a new flat top. I guess there might be a potential of introducing pancakes into the menu at some point in time. So, the breakfast boy in me is getting super excited. I'm like, yes, this is what I want. And, my wife and I, we've always talked about, man, we really like restaurants that, are kind of open to trying new things and expanding the menu where possible and not just sticking with the usuals and getting a little adventurous, if you will. And so you're definitely doing that.
Yeah. And we are Biscuit Company. And so that will always be the focus. But I want to have a menu that is exciting. And maybe you don't want a fried chicken biscuit that day, but maybe your friends want to go and you're like, well, I'll get the hash, which if you sleep on our hash, you shouldn't. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's going to change.
Now, what kind of hash do you guys make?
So we do, like I said, we use that potato blend that I mentioned earlier. It's sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, and gold potatoes.
Okay.
And then we do onions and peppers in there. Currently, it has chorizo in it.
Okay.
And then an egg. And then we use a hot sauce out of Chattanooga, Tennessee called Hoff sauce. And it is the best hot sauce I've ever had. He's won best hot sauce in the country for forever. And we're going to be bringing more of those varieties on just to kind of complement some of the other dishes we do. And then you can get it vegetarian. And both of those dishes are going to be...
Wait, stop. You said you'll be able to get the hash vegetarian?
You can right now. We have a garden hash on the menu.
Oh, my goodness.
You can do a vegetarian hash if you want. Both of those are going to update and change by the beginning of May.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to take, which we call the hash Gordon, because if you've ever seen the movie Flash Gordon...
Yes, I'm that old.
Yeah, me too. So, anytime someone ordered a hash on the truck, all I could hear was the Queen soundtrack.
Hash.
You don't know.
Yes.
And so we would always sing that. So we just named it the Hash Gordon.
Oh, man.
And but I've always wanted to do that. We've done it a few times with brisket, which it is insane. But as you guys might know, to do brisket right, it's 12 to 14 hour cook. And it's also very expensive.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is pork belly. I want to do a smoked pork belly hash. So I have a friend of mine that smokes. He does a lot. He does that for Airship up there, and he's been smoking that for us. And so we're testing it just to kind of get it right, get the rub right, get everything done. And then we'll introduce that. Price will go up a little bit, but it'll be 100% worth it. It's going to be a smoked pork belly hash, and we'll get away from the chorizo.
Okay.
Just because we're not making the chorizo in-house. I could get it local.
Yeah.
But I really feel like that smoked pork belly is more in line with Delta Biscuit and then the kind of chorizo is. And so it'll be fantastic. And then the garden hash, we're going to add in some like Brussels sprouts and different things roasted that'll complement the rest of the root vegetables. And then, in the summers, we get some fresh veggies. We'll get some more of those in there. But we're going to really beef that up and make it a real veggie hash versus just kind of an option for vegetarians.
Sure.
It'll be something that's real hearty.
It won't taste like an afterthought.
Yeah. And I don't think it does right now. It is incomplete. And I know that.
Yeah.
But it's and it's also a gluten-free option.
Yeah, which is huge. Because I know I have a bunch of friends, actually some people that have shared some of your posts that are gluten intolerant. So it's big that, you're not only focusing on those or people that don't eat red meat or pork or anything like that, but you're also looking out for the gluten-free folks that, you want to have something on the menu for them. So.
We do. And it's very difficult in that some ways because if you're gluten intolerant, pretty much everybody's been fine. And I have some friends who are gluten intolerant and they've never had an issue. The problem comes if someone has celiac. It's such a small space. Everything's covered in flour. I'm covered in flour. I shouldn't shake. I mean, there's just no way around it on such a small space, being a biscuit truck.
Yeah.
So if you have celiac, I'm very sorry, but it's just not something that I can accommodate. And I'm not willing to risk your health.
Right.
And if you tell me that and I know that and I serve you, I take on some liability. And so it becomes an issue.
Sure.
But gluten intolerant, we keep everything pretty separate and, it tends to be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, and I know this is still early and I don't want to push you into a corner of making any determinations, but is there any chance that there might be a bricks and mortar version of your food truck in the future?
Yeah. So Delta Biscuit started as an idea for brick and mortars.
Okay.
It's designed to be that way. I had the design for our restaurant before I ever had the design for the food truck. And so I actually want about 6 to 7 in Arkansas.
Okay.
I think there's room for it. I think we could do a couple up here, 3 up here. I would love to go to Hot Springs.
Absolutely.
I spent a lot of time in Hot Springs from, Little Rock, great mountain biking there, but also the downtowns just really come back to some phenomenal restaurants. And if you haven't been to DeLuca's Pizza, geez.
I've heard about it.
Tony is wonderful, and the pizza is insane. So.
Yeah. Now, isn't he from back east?
Oh, yeah. Tony's a Brooklyn boy.
That's what I thought.
He grew up in New York and then Vegas and then ended up in Hot Springs.
Okay.
So we go down there for that. We go down there for my friend David owns what used to be the Brauhaus down there. It's now Steinhaus Keller. So an amazing German restaurant. So I go down there. I've spent more nights drinking on that patio than I can count. But I think that city's fantastic. And then, then a couple in Little Rock and maybe one in Jonesboro. Kind of initial thoughts. Just like, would love to do it. Just kind of keep it regional, keep it small, have a lot of fun with it, and make it a breakfast experience versus just like a place to get some food.
Listen, I mean, growing up, I grew up in New Jersey. I went to school in D.C. I really didn't. I mean, bagels and lox was a big thing on Sunday morning.
I got a friend who owns a bagel place in Alexandria.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about and steam bagels too. Like if you can get like the old school steam bagels. But, it wasn't until I went out to the Bay Area and lived in Berkeley and San Francisco that my breakfast brunch game was raised to another level because there's so many good breakfast spots out there. And so I would love to kind of see us step our game up to that level where you just like everywhere you go, it's not so much that it's a chain place, but like you go into them and in each of these unique breakfast spots, like the Farmer's Table, which you mentioned, and there's some others that are really good. And, we need more of them, right? Because like you go to the Farmer's Table and it's like, I mean, the wait's like crazy because there's so many people trying to get in there.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it's good, I think, if you have more options.
Agreed.
Because it spreads people out.
Well, and I think what our concept brings to the table is that's our focus.
Sure.
It's not an afterthought.
Yeah.
We're not throwing a brunch menu together for Saturday or Sunday. It's what we do. And so it has to be at that level all the time. So when you do show up on Tuesday or Saturday or Sunday, the quality is perfect. It's in step. It's not a new menu that we're doing once a week. And so it takes a long time to get our, kind of our legs under us.
Yeah.
It's in step. And so that's what I want to bring. And really a limiting factor for us right now is size, right?
Yeah.
I can only keep so many things cold. I can only cook so many things at a time. And I only have so much room in a fryer. But if I doubled in size, we could quadruple what we did.
Right.
And so want to bring some really cool options to that breakfast brunch game that I don't think anybody's doing here. And, I think one of the biggest ways, I'm such a big cocktail guy. I think breakfast cocktails are underrepresented as a whole. And we've got so many ideas to really go past your Bloody Marys and mimosas. Like when we do it, we're going to blow. People are going to be like, what in the world?
Right.
But I mean, I think about that, I'll just start thinking. And so I've been developing it over 5 years. And it's like, okay, how does this work? And it's going to be a lot of fun when we do it. I think we're going to put as much attention into that as almost we did the regular food menu.
Sure.
And so I think it's going to be really exciting.
I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Agreed.
So, no, that's great.
If you're out there and want to make this happen, reach out.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I'll be promoting you left and right. And finally, you also do some catering, right? If people need a caterer, is that the case?
Yeah, so we do catering. And with the food truck, we can kind of do that two ways. We're so used to being mobile that being stationary is a little weird for us still. So if you want the food truck at a location, we just, you want the full menu available, or you just want that aesthetic, we're happy to do that. So we can bring the food truck to a location and just sling some food. We've done that from, we've done weddings. We catered for Union Pacific and FedEx in Little Rock, 36 hours at a time, just getting all their shifts.
Yeah.
So we're capable of doing that. And then we do drop-off caterings. Like if you're just having people for the weekend, you just want, hey, we don't want to leave, but we want your food. Cool. We can talk about that and set that up. The catering menu isn't up right now because I'm not doing anything until May because I'm out of the country next week. And so just don't have the staff for that. But once I get back in May, kind of that first week of May, we'll have our pre-orders up on the website where you'll be able to order like our monkey bread muffins, or we're going to be bringing our homemade Pop-Tarts back and some different fun things like that. So you'll be able to order those for pickup the next day. And then you'll also be able to kind of see what we can do for catering. I think the best part about being a small business is it's like, well, hey, we like this, but we'd really like this. And I go, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to have a set menu, which we do kind of have a set menu, but I can be real nimble and give you what you want while at the same time, like keeping it to what we're very, very good at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, you've heard it here. Hayne Begley has laid out that biscuits for everyone.
That's it.
In a multitude of forms and fashions. So you're going to have to check out Hayne and his team at the Delta Biscuit Company. Again, what's that address up in Bentonville?
So we're at 900 South Main there in
It's
Bentonville.
over by Hayne School.
Yeah, right next to the Hayne School. Right,
Yep.
It's the corner of 8th and A Street.
Okay.
Is what it is. South Main is technically the school, the road between us and Hayden. But if you know where 8th and A is, where the Bentonville Fire Department is,
Yep.
we are right there. And there's about 5 food trucks now,
Sure.
kind of within 3 or 4 blocks.
Yep.
And then if you need to know where we are, we're at Delta Biscuit Co. or at Delta Biscuit or www.deltabiscuits.com.
Right.
So
yeah.
there is another Delta Biscuit company in Monroe, Louisiana, and I get a lot of their traffic. So they opened recently, but I own like all the websites and stuff.
Sure,
and I'm like, I'm
sure.
sorry guys, but
Yeah.
but I get a lot of calls from Louisiana and they're like, can we make a reservation? And I'm like, we're a food truck in Arkansas. I'm sorry. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I was like, I don't know the number though. So
Right.
I give it to
Yeah,
you.
that's funny.
But apparently they do great food. So at least they're keeping the name going on.
Exactly. No, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, I think that's great. And we'll make sure that everybody on the show notes has a way to get in contact with you
Oh,
if they
perfect.
want to connect with you. So all of that will be on there. If you want to go to the Delta Biscuit Company, order something. If you want to just get an idea of what their menu looks like before you head on over to the food truck, or if you're a company or a business or somebody that's about to get married and just wants a unique menu for your wedding, you need to reach out to Hayne and you'll be able to order from them. And please just tell them that the folks from I Am Northwest Arkansas sent you. But Hayne, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to documenting your growth here in Northwest Arkansas. And we'll be able to say we had you on back when, before the restaurants, before the bricks and mortar, before all that other stuff. And it's so nice to have you on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for the invite. And like, again, I'm glad it worked with your schedule and my schedule to kind of make it happen so quick. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, but the response we've gotten up here and just kind of the welcome is second to none. And we're just excited to be part of the community and not just build Delta Biscuit, but really build, community into our restaurants in a way that I think is sustainable long term.
Absolutely. Well, as a de facto ambassador for Northwest Arkansas, I want to welcome you again and thank you for coming. And we will support you any way that you can. And certainly anybody listening to this that's coming here to visit, if you're coming to Bentonville, or if you're here on a Walmart trip because you might think about joining them, you need to come over to the food truck and have some of those biscuits. And if that doesn't convince you to sign on the dotted line with Walmart, I don't know what will.
I don't know what to tell you. If the mountain biking and the biscuits don't get you here,
exactly.
I don't know what will.
Oh, man, I gotta love it. Gotta love it. So, Hayne, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again.
Absolutely. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. I had so much fun doing this episode. I know it was a little longer than usual, but there was a lot of great information here, both on the encouragement side. If you're thinking about starting a business, listening to Hayne's story and what he did to move his food truck up here to Northwest Arkansas and just what he's working on should be encouragement enough. And then on the other side of things, I don't know about you, but my stomach is hungry right now. I have hunger pains just listening to Hayne talk about these biscuits, and I cannot wait to try them out myself. So listen, I'll report back and let you know what I think. I'll probably do a Instagram live whenever I go to the food truck. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, just check out Delta Biscuit Company and see what they're all about, and check out Hayne, and please let him know that you heard about him first here on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. That's all we have for you this week. Remember, our podcast comes out rain or shine every Monday. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I will see you soon. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.